This video is going to give a tour of the MLA Style Guide. We'll review the content of the MLA Style Guide on the Online Writing Lab at Purdue and walk through the in-text citation and works cited page information. This is just an overview, so look for other videos where we'll go more in depth. The first thing that you'll see when you're in the MLA guide is that there's the overview and workshop, and then there's the formatting and style guide. If you've never written a paper in MLA before, you should take a look at the overview and workshop because it explains what MLA style is, it explains why we should use MLA, and it also says who uses MLA. So these are the fields that are most likely going to use MLA, which stands for the Modern Language Association. So make sure that you become familiar with each of these issues. The general format tells you the paper format and general guidelines, such as double spacing, using a legible font, and rules like margins, indenting first lines of paragraphs, and all of those kinds of things. This provides a sample for what an MLA paper looks like, for what the first page looks like. If we do section headings, and it even talks about if that's different in books or not and how you should handle your section headings. So take a look at the general guidelines, especially if you've never written a paper in MLA format before, or if it's been a while, because they did change the style a couple of years ago. The next thing that you can take a look at is the formatting and style guide. This is going to talk about, again, give us an overview of how we create the works cited list. This will give us some general rules. It'll talk to us about how to treat the title of a container. Containers basically mean the text that a smaller text is contained within. Or, to put it differently, if you have a book of short stories, for example, that's the container for a single short story. Or, if you're talking about a television episode, the container is the television series. You can also think about that if you're thinking of music albums, where a song on the album would be in the container, with the album being the container. It talks about how to treat different versions of a work, how to treat numbering, the publisher, publication dates, and all sorts of things. So you should review all of this general information as you go through, and so that you are familiar. I don't expect you to memorize this, but it is good to know that you can look up the specific information when you have different types of texts. The next thing that you should take note of is that there's basic information for MLA in-text citation. So there's basic in-text citation rules that lets you know that we use parenthetical citation. It tells you what source information is required in citation, which depends on the type of work. And it also reminds you that what you provide in text needs to correspond to the source information on the works cited page. This means that the reader of your paper can easily figure out which sources are there. Now it has different rules for how you do in-text citations for print sources with a known author, a corporate author, no known author, classic literary works, authors with same last names, works by multiple authors, works by the same author, multi-volume works. There's special ways that we cite the Bible, indirect sources. This means sources that are quoted within other sources, and then how we cite sources from the internet and other non-print sources. So as you can see, there's a lot of information, and you should not try to memorize this, but review it, and then when you encounter a particular type of source, especially if it's not one you use very often, you can consult the basic rules so that you know how to cite that text properly. The next thing you should pay attention to is how we format quotations. There are different rules for how we handle short quotations and how we handle long quotations. So if you're doing multiple lines of poetry, for example, or a long passage from a text, we treat that differently than we do just a few words or a sentence. So these are things that you need to review and that you're responsible for observing and following in your papers. We also get a guide for endnotes and footnotes. And then the next thing is the works cited page and the basic format. So again, this is going to give you basic rules regarding indenting, formatting the works cited page, how you should order the entries on your works cited page, how you handle capitalization and punctuation, how we list authors, multiple authors, and so on. So make sure that you give a good look at the basics, and then next it starts telling us how to cite specific sources. So we're going to have books, periodicals, electronic sources, so on and so forth. So you can see that we get the basic book format, and then we get all of the alternative formats that might show up with books, like a translated book or a different edition of a book that has an editor, anthologies, lots of different exceptions. So it's important to be familiar. It's important to be aware of what type of materials you're citing. And then this also provides a sample works cited page for us, so we can see what a works cited page looks like. That's really helpful sometimes. And then there's commonly asked questions and other resources that you might need to check. So that's our overview of the MLA guide. I'll have other videos that walk through how to find the information for specific sources, so check back for those.